so far. My name is Amanda Buchanan, and I am a program manager with the University of Arizona Center for Innovation. And today we are hosting our first session for our work on understanding DOE, SBIRs, and STTRs. Today's focused on first-time applicants, but if you're not a first-time applicant, we're still glad to have you. We know this is a lengthy process to get through, and so you could always need a refresher, I'm sure. So UACI is one of 6 power connectors that's working with the Department of Energy. And we are working to support what is called the American-Made Challenges. And so we were contracted with the Department of Energy to provide support to applicants that are seeking an application in either the solar or water areas. And I'll go through those topics as we get a little bit further. And I also want to introduce Casey Carrillo, who's on the call today. She is also a program manager with UACI, and she and I will be working jointly on this process. So you'll see information coming from us throughout the application process. We're also part of a larger network that connects the American-Made network throughout the American-Made Challenges. And as you can see, there are organizations and businesses and establishments throughout the country that are geared towards helping people be successful in their innovations. And if you have any questions or you need support in finding some resources in your area, we will happily direct you to the network and help you find your way and maybe make some connections. So as I shared with you, there are so many topics that are put out through the Department of Energy, but UACI specifically is contracted to support solar technologies as well as water power technologies, and these are be found in page 4 and section 27 of the topics. And but if you're applying for another area, you're interested in another topic, we're happy to help you find your way and find some resources. So, but I just wanted to point out that these are the specific topics that we will be supporting throughout the challenge. And you'll see here, if you go to this website, and you've probably already been there, but this is where you'll find all of the dates and information that will help you throughout the process. These are the key dates that you'll find on the DOE website, the target dates that we need to meet, and we will be aligning all of our information and support along with these dates. And so as you see the topic, those topics that we just talked about, there was a webinar hosted on November 18th, and the webinar should be posted, and you should be able to see that topic soon and see that DOE. It wasn't up right before Thanksgiving, but I can check again, and if it is up, I'll make sure and send that out to everybody that attends today. And we are working quickly towards the LOI, which is due on January 3rd. And so as you'll see, we have different areas that we will provide support for you to meet these deadlines. So these are the key deadlines that we will be working towards. Right now, the full FOA will be issued on the 13th, and then DOE will do their FOA webinar on the 17th, which will be, and we'll have several that are sprinkled throughout that as we work towards the LOI that's due on January 3rd. And we do have an expert on with us today that's going to be going through more in depth in that, and I'll get to that in just a moment. And you should have received these in the email that I sent out to you, but after today's webinar, we'll be sending those out again. And so these are the support that we're going to be offering here throughout UACI during this process. So today, as you see, we're starting with our first webinar for understanding SBIR for first-time applicants, but just starting on Thursday, we're going to offer another webinar. It's how to prepare an LOI, and Sonia will be walking through that process. And after today's call, we'll send you an official invite for that if you'd like to join, but we recommend that you join all 5 of the application support webinars. So from there, we'll go each week, we'll have one finding the right topics, writing your proposal. We'll take a break before the holidays, and then we'll start an evaluation criteria, legal process, and data rights. So again, we'll be sending out links for all of these, and hope that you can join for all of them. So onto our Our speaker, Sonia Vohnout, is the founder and president of SPOT. She is also a UACI subject matter expert. She works specifically on grants and contracts and with a specialty in SBIRs and STTRs. Sonia has co-founded several companies and over 30 years of experience in systems engineering, quality systems, business development, and program management, and she's has expertise in the SBIR and STTR program. She's been a great resource to UACI, and we're so happy to have her here. And so I'm just going to turn it over to Sonia and let her get started with her presentation.
Thanks, Amanda. I'm Sonia Vohnout. Let's see. Do you want to give me control of the screen?
Yes, you should be able to share your screen.
Okay, so let's do that. Share screen here. So does everybody see my presentation? Yeah?
Yep.
Okay, so let's do that. And then.
Oh, Sonia, it looks like we have your notes view. Yeah, if you just want to switch it.
This one?
There you go.
Awesome. Okay, so I'm Sonia Vohnout, and I'm going to be presenting just a few slides with an overview about what the SBIR STTR program is. And the focus of this presentation is going to be on DOE, because that's a solicitation that's open right now, and that's what we want to help you with as you navigate through the process of submitting a proposal for the DOE SBIR STTR solicitation. And Amanda did an excellent job introducing me, so I'm not gonna focus on these slides, but I do help the companies independently from the University of Arizona Center for Innovation, and I like to focus on helping build commercialization strategies, taking the idea to a product and transitioning it to the workforce and the commercial market. So the objective of this webinar today is to give you an overview of the SBIR STTR program, but with a focus on DOE, and also to learn about what is the current DOE solicitation in terms of very high level, what are the topic areas and what is the application process and the timeline, which Amanda touched a little bit on what that timeline and process looks like. Okay, so there's a lot of information to cover, and if I'm going too fast, please someone raise your hand and slow me down. Let's see if I can answer questions as I go along. It's hard for me to see if someone has a question or to monitor the chat box, but Amanda or Casey, if you see something important there for me to stop, please let me know.
Will do.
And we'll take it that way. So the SBIR program in itself started in 1982, and it has grown to be over 3.5 billion early stage, non-dilutive research and development funding for small businesses. And the focus here is non-dilutive, right? So as you start your companies, you want to do as much as possible to grab some of these funding so that you don't dilute your company with VC and other investor funding. So it's another mechanism for early stage and high risk innovation ideas. And the government uses this program to select those high risk, high reward innovative ideas that a lot of the large companies try not to do. So this is also an opportunity for a small business to take advantage of the fact that they have gotten an award to team up with a large company that's looking for these innovative ideas, but because they're high risk, they tend to not develop them themselves. So this is an opportunity with the proper network and commercialization strategies for you to partner with those large corporations in transition. So the goal was to stimulate technological innovation in the small business sector, to use federal funds for the small business that has to be for profit. This is not geared towards nonprofit organizations, but small businesses defined for less than 500 employees. And it also wants to encourage the participation of socially and economically disadvantaged businesses that are 51% owned and controlled by women, for example, in technology innovation. That doesn't mean that if you're not a socially disadvantaged company that you can't apply, but it is encouraging those socially and economically disadvantaged companies to apply. It also wants to increase the private sector with these commercialization innovations and encourage economic growth. So the SBIR and STTR basics, like I said, it started in 1982. It is for profit organizations. The SBIR in itself also allows for you to team up with nonprofit organizations such as research institutions under both the SBIR and STTR. So let me back up a minute. There's two forms of funding. One is for SBIR and one is for STTR. So the SBIR focuses on the small business having most of the resources, including the principal investigator, as part of the small business. And there's 11 agencies that provide SBIR funding, and the budget has grown right now for over 100 million. The STTR is a little bit smaller than the SBIR, but it requires, the biggest difference is that it does require for the small business to partner with one of these research institutions, such as a university, or in the case of DOE, it could be like a national laboratory. And the PI can be either an employee of the small business or the research institution. So a lot of times the small business might not have that key employee in hand, and it might, or laboratory to make the proof of concept. So it could become strategic for the small business to start as an STTR application. And then as you grow and you develop your resources, then on a second phase, go for an STTR, right? There's also fewer agencies that offer STTR. The DOE is one of them. So if it makes sense for your organization to do an STTR, DOE provides that option. And the whole goal of the STTR is to foster these collaborations between the research institutions and the small businesses. And for a list of the federally funded ones, you could go to the link on this page. So here is a comparison of how the R&D expenditure requirements are distributed, because that's another key difference between the SBIR and STTR. Under the SBIR, the majority of the work has to be done by the small business. And under the STTR, you could subcontract out up to 60% of your funds. Under the SBIR, you can't subcontract more than 30%. So that's another thing that differentiates the two, that is very important as you decide what your needs of the company are and what your current capabilities are. You have to consider this, right? How do you distribute your budget? Can you afford to give out so much to one of these research institutions? Another difference between that you'll find in SBIRs and STTRs, as well as the SBIR STTR program, is grants versus contracts. And the easiest way to understand the difference is that grants might be open-ended topic, right? And the agency not necessarily defines the requirements or the objectives of the research to be done. Whereas on a contract, like specifically with the DOD, they will tell you exactly what you want what they need, because they have a need like for the warfighter. And so there are specific requirements for that product or technology that needs to be developed. Whereas in the case of the grants, it's not necessarily. Another difference is that usually the granting organization is not going to be your customer. Whereas in the contracting organization, it ends up being one of your customers, right? And we can discuss that a little bit more in detail further on. So this is a chart that shows which organizations offer contracts and which offer grants. And you'll see that the Human Health Services and NIH does both, as does the Department of Education. But all the other ones offer only one or the other. Case of DOE, which we're going to be discussing now, they have grants. And for the most part, you'll see that the majority of their topics are very high level and open-ended, but I really encourage you to still reach out to the topic author and find out if there's a specific requirement or what they really are looking for in the specific topic, because it might help you decide whether that particular topic is something you can respond to or not. Here are a little bit more on differences. So the grants is more flexible instrument, and then the principal investigator has more freedom to define what the scope of the project is going to be. And usually the questions and answers, like if you communicate with that topic author, are not made public. So I really encourage you to reach out to these individuals because your conversation can be private. Other organizations that offer contracts, such as the DOE, will give you the first, for instance, solicitation comes out in the first month. You have time to communicate with the topic author in private, but after that, the second month, you can't talk to this individual more privately, and any questions have to go through a public platform. So you have to be very careful on what you ask so that you don't give away your secret sauce of what it is that's innovative about your technology. And usually the topic authors for the grants are available the majority of the time. In contracts, it varies. In the case of NASA, once a solicitation comes out, you can't talk to the topic author anymore. This is just the breakdown. I got this most recently from the SBIR conference in last month in DC. And you will see that the largest organization that funds projects under the SBIR STTR is the Department of Defense, followed by the NIH. And then now the DOE is the third organization giving out money. So there's a lot of opportunity within DOE. And as you saw from Amanda's presentation slide, they offer 2 solicitation periods. And under each period, the institutes that offer topics will differ. So if right now you're looking for energy, solar and water, for instance, it's open now. But if you don't respond now, you're going to have to wait another year for topics under those categories come out. But one of the things also that I want to point out is that although right now you're interested on DOE, a lot of the technologies that you're developing might also be of interest to DOD and possibly NASA, maybe the USDA. I think also NOAA. So what I'm trying to say is the fact that you have something you believe is related to energy or water, the DOD might be interested in your technology as well. And although they will give you specific requirements, you could adapt or do some engineering changes to the current technology you're developing, and with minimum change could also apply for another agency. So how does the process work with the DOE? So the SBIR is a 3-phase program, and normally the agency will fund phases 1 and 2. Sometimes they have matching funds or double or additional phase 2s, but they will not fund a phase 3. So for phase 3, which is the commercialization component, you have to find money from private organizations or within the same agencies or government agencies, but not SBIR funds. So you have to find money from a different source of funding, non-SBIR. So although it's confusing that it says that it's 3 phases, phase 1 and phase 2 is funded by the agency. Phase 3, you have to find the funds. And this is typically the process where your phase 1 will be 6 months, 9 months to a year. Sometimes you could do no cost extensions or propose something further than a year, but typically it does not go beyond 1 year. And depending on the agency or the institute, and as well with the DOE, the amount of funds will vary. It could be from 200 to 250,000. Some agencies like the NSF offer 256,000 for your phase 1. And the NIH, sometimes with some exceptions, you could go to a whole lot more. So you have to look at the solicitation and see, in the case of DOE, even for each topic, how much are they funding, and make sure that you align your budget to what the solicitation requirements are. A phase 2, and phase 1, you're doing proof of concept. So generally, it could be through simulations, it could be a paper demonstration. Sometimes depends on your funding and what you need to do to demonstrate that proof of concept. You might end up with some physical device or a prototype. But generally speaking, on a phase 2, that's where you're going to be developing a prototype, and you're going to be demonstrating it. And in the most cases, you will either end up with a laboratory experiment or even a prototype in a relevant environment. So if you're working with one of the national laboratories, they might have the laboratory space that's relevant for you to test your prototype in. So that's when sometimes these strategies of who you partner with are very important. And phase 2A and B is just another way of the agency to look at how can we support the organization with additional funds towards commercialization. But as you see, as you move through this process, the number of awards on each iteration goes down. So, and it depends, I'd say, typically you're gonna be looking at maybe a 10% probability of winning on a phase 1. And then if you have a really good proposal and you demonstrated your feasibility quite strongly on your phase 1, your likelihood of getting a phase 2 increases to about 50%. And then when you are going to commercialize, then you have to align yourself very well with a mission need, or a need possibly in this case with the DOE, with a good commercialization partner for you to be getting more money. Similarly for a phase 2C. But so this is not a process for the faint or for someone who's in a really big hurry, because as you can see, this could take many years, right? So if you want to get to market quicker, using only SBIR, STTR funds is not going to do the trick, right? And you also don't know if it's not 100% sure you're going to win. So make sure you keep that in mind if you want to get to market quicker. One of the ways that the federal government and the SBA has looked at in support of commercializing technology and bringing them to market quicker is through what's called the technical and business assistance. This is funds that go over and above those $200,000, $250,000 that they give you for your phase one, for instance, or the $1 million for phase two. This is money that's set aside that you can apply, teaming strategically with a vendor that you like to work with so that you can commercialize your technology quicker. So if you have a small company that doesn't have a strong business development arm or someone that works in business development or does not have expertise in a particular market, using TABA funds will help you do that. Under phase one, DOE will give you $6,500 to work with an approved vendor, and under a phase two, they can give you up to $50,000, right? And phase two is typically 2 years. Phase one, like I said, no more than a year. Plug for me, I provide the TABA services. So if you're interested in adding me to your proposal, please reach out. And I'm an approved vendor. I've been doing this for years. And we could customize the services for you of what we could do under TABA services. Okay, Amanda went through this earlier. So right now we're, somewhere right before the funding opportunity announcement is made. So we have to make sure, or you have to make sure, that you read that solicitation carefully. Read every single sentence and line because it changes every year. It has not come out. A lot of what I'm going to be saying here is very general, and some things could be subject to change. I hope not, because I'm using the previous release FOA on some of the information. But I strongly suggest that you read the FOA funding opportunity announcement. And if you have questions, reach out. There's been webinars that have discussed the topics already. So please go and look at them, specifically the ones related to your technology. We're going to be talking on topics later on, but not today. And then there's going to be the letter of intent that's due on January 3rd. And on Thursday, I'll be giving you an overview of what that looks like. And then applications are due February 22nd. There are absolutely no exceptions. If you don't submit your application on time, then you have to wait another year to submit it. Okay? And it will take them a few months to let you know if you want, and they make that public. And DOE is very good about sticking to their dates. So monitor their website. If there's going to be a delay, they'll let you know. Here's basically the way the timeline works. So right now we're somewhere in here. And once the opportunity comes out or the solicitation, read it. In between that, after you've read it, you've contacted the topic authors, you have to decide if you're interested. Even if you have a little bit of doubt, please submit a letter of intent. If you don't submit a letter of intent, you can't submit your proposal. Okay? If you don't submit a letter of intent, you cannot submit a proposal. So this is not too hard. It's a max 2-page. And we'll go through the purpose on the next presentation, but it's not to tell you if it doesn't apply or not. They might go and tell you that, but it's for them to know what expertise they need for the review process. Okay. And then the applications are due, they're going to review, then they're going to tell you, we like your proposal, we'd like to give you an award, but then they still negotiate it. And as part of the negotiation process, they're going to come ask you questions about your budget, about your team, about your technology. Anything the reviewers raise, they might ask it here, and they're doing their due diligence. Do not be negligent. And that's what they're doing when they're negotiating. And they might also ask you to verify your budget. So if you said you're going to be spending $5,000 on a piece of equipment, please have more than one quote, because generally they're going to want to make sure that you have the best quote. Similarly, for subcontractors, if you have more than one, you have to be able to say why you picked a subcontractor, and saying they're the best sometimes is not enough, just have enough background information. And then you get your award, and then similar process for your phase 2. Okay, so this comes
Sonia,
up.
before we move past the deadline, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I just wanted to insert a question that was submitted. Does the deadline to apply for phase 2 the same as phase 1?
The deadline, if you look at the DOE website, they're going to give you the date of when the phase 2 is due. And typically you do have about 2 months between when the announcement comes and when you have to apply. So it's pretty much the same. Does that answer the
Great,
question?
thank you. Tobias, does that answer your question?
Yes.
All right, cool. Yeah, and always have good communication with your customer, right? So that you know what the needs are, if you're on target, if they're happy with your product, what would they like. So it's always make sure that you're always engaged with your customer. So once you win your phase 1, don't go out rogue and do whatever you want. Just always communicate with them, communicate with your team. If you're working with your research organization or with a national laboratory, if you have commercialization partners that are interested, make sure you're all aligned in the same page, because that will increase your chances of winning that phase 2. Okay, so this is just right out of the DOE's SBIR and their web pages, right? They want to have the best solutions for the environment, for energy. They want to be transformative, and they have to be innovative. So they want to catalyze timely, material, and efficient transformation missions energy system, and have leadership in terms of energy technologies. They want to be an effort in science and engineering, and foster economic prosperity. And they also need to ensure national nuclear security, right? And so what I did here is I aligned the goals and color-coded it with the different program offices. And then I put an asterisk next to the ones that are being on the current solicitation, okay? So those are going to be the different institutions within the program offices and the release 2 that will have topics in this release, right? And here's just the further breakdown of those. And what I did here, and this is kind of how, if you look at the solicitation topic list, how they're listed. And in your particular case, in terms of the challenge, and what we're focused on is going to be solar and water. So topic basics. So they're created by DOE program managers, and they're defined to important technology breakthroughs. Usually it's R&D needs in areas to support the DOE mission, which we saw earlier. The topics are organized by program office, like I listed it. And if you look at the topics, you're going to find sometimes they put a generic email address, but sometimes they give you the name, phone number, and email of a topic author. So like I discussed before, it is very important for you to reach out with any question or clarification of their topic to these program managers. And although if you listen to the webinars a week or so ago for the different topics, it goes really fast. So they didn't tell you many details. So if you want details about the topic, reach out to them, please. It makes a big difference. And Here are the topics that we focus on and that will go in more detail in a different webinar. Here's what a topic example looks like. So this particular one was radiation and detection materials, but you're going to see that it will have the how much is the maximum award? Do they offer STTR? This one doesn't. How much is the maximum phase 2? And it typically starts with a description of the office and the different subtopics. This one only has 2. So the topic, when it doesn't say other, it will give you some requirements, some specifics on the need. And sometimes each office, and generally they have more than just one, and they'll list them A, B, C, D. And when you write your letter of intent, you pick out you'll say topic 3A, for instance. Or if you have technology that applies to a topic, but not necessarily fits directly with one of those subtopics, you could always go under the other category. And this is where it becomes really, really important for you to have talked to your program manager, right? Because you might fit under, you might think you have an other, but then when you talk to them, they're going to tell you, nah, really, that's not a good fit with the mission. So then you don't waste your time, right? Or they might just say, yeah, that's a really good idea. We didn't think about it. Go ahead, submit your letter of intent. And I'll be happy to look at your proposal when you get it. They're not going to tell you they're going to fund it. This particular one gives you a contact and their email. One thing that's very important to look on the references, I look at these references very carefully because it can give you more information about what has been done, what they're looking for, but also possibly what are potential competitors. And if you study them, you'll be able to know what are going to be your technical advantages or competitive advantage. But if they list that as for it's a purpose. You need to be very aware of what the content of these ones are. So don't underestimate references. So what's the application process? There's several registrations. You're going to need to subscribe to grants.gov. But before doing anything, you need a DUNS number. And I've noticed that on SAM.gov that they're going to be replacing the DUNS with their own unique identity identifier. So if you're new, they might have you get this instead of a DUNS. In the past, you first get a DUNS, then you get your SAM. To do a SAM registration, you're also going to need to have a bank account and a tax ID number for your business. And then you go and apply for grants.gov. And as part of your application, not only do you have to register your company, but you're going to have to register also a couple of individuals that are going to be key. And they could be the same ones, but without that, you're not going to be able to submit any grant, okay, or application. So you're going to have someone that represents the business and someone that's going to be authorized to be able to submit proposals for you, right? And it could be the same person. But if you don't find this on grants.gov and you go and you start your process of submission and you try to submit the day it's due, like 10 minutes before, you're done. So make sure that you have all these registrations properly completed and that you've identified these profile roles. And all the instructions are in grants.gov. And I have found if you do this early, the help desk, and they're very useful. So when I have questions, I always reach out to them, and I have been pleasantly surprised, but you have to do it with time. And you're going to need to register with the SBA under the SBIR.gov, and they'll give you a PDF file that will have your registration profile with your company name, your address, and an ID. And that's going to be needed when you submit your application. It's going to be part of your process. or your proposal. And then for DOE, you also have to register in PAMS. That's how you submit your proposal and your letter of intent. Okay. We're going to go in more details on this on Tuesday, but basically the letter of intent is required so that they can find out who's applying, what technologies are going to be applied, and so that they can find reviewers for the process. It's maximum 2 pages, and most of it is part with an abstract, and the abstract has no more than 500 words. Another key thing here is make it non-proprietary, because it's going to be available for the reviewers and the DOE program managers. If you're collaborating with a research institution or you have subcontractors, you've got to list them here too. Very briefly, an application is going to have a project narrative, which also has word and page limits. So for phase 1, 15 pages, 7,500 words. Phase 2, 20 pages, 10,000 words. You're going to have to create a budget, as well as a budget justification. And budget justification is just like also a Word document that you'll PDF, and it will describe exactly why your budget is the way it is. And you will do it line item by line item so that you can match if your principal investigator is going to be making 60,000, why is the principal investigator going to be doing 60,000 and what they're going to be doing? If your subcontractor wants 5,000, their name, 5,000 and what, and so on and so forth. But what I recommend is create your budget on a spreadsheet and then translate it into your application in the format that they require. And but make sure that you have it itemized exactly by line, and then your budget also one by one, make the matches. There's a section on key personnel, and you're going to be needing to provide a resume or a bio sketch for each of these persons. And then this one, the commercialization plan, is a key component, and it's up to 2,000 words. And you can look at examples of that, or if you want to, reach out to us and we can discuss more in detail. But during the webinar on writing your proposal, we're going to go into more details into commercialization plans too. But right now, what I want you to make sure is that you have an idea or a good idea of who your customers are, who you're going to partner with, and how you're going to do it. So if you start thinking about that, you're ahead of the ball game, and start talking to those potential customers to validate that your idea fits their needs, right? So don't wait till a day before the proposal is due to write this. And there's going to be an online form, and this one, the data management, how you're going to intend to handle any of the data and your findings from the research. Okay, here there's, this is more about the path to commercialization and what the main purpose of the different phases are in relation of having an idea to the time you need to commercialize. So if you make a correspondence between you're doing your research, you have a great idea, and you're proving your concept, and you're going towards commercialization, think about the different phases, how they relate to the commercialization process, right? So phase 1 is proof of concept. Phase 2, you're doing a well-developed prototype. And during your phase 2, subsequent phase 2s or phase 3, you're then spending more time on how do I protect my IP? What is going to be your sales and marketing strategy? How am I going to go to market? Who am I going to be teaming with? How am I going to do it, right? And these are kind of the different assistants that you can get through us and through the DOE, so throughout the different phases. And one of the things that DOE also offers to help you with the commercialization, besides the TABA funds that are not listed here, is they now have created the DOE I-Corps, and they call it I-Corps E. NASA created the I-Corps, not NASA, NSF, some years ago, and now a lot of the different federal agencies are embracing that process for customer discovery and business model validation. So it will be important if you do get a phase one, I strongly recommend that you sign up for their DOE I-Corps E, so that you could do further validation of your idea, find potential commercialization partners, and what is going to be your best business model in terms, should I license, should I do direct sales, things of that sort. So I strongly recommend the I-Corps program. Okay, any questions? So